Hi, and welcome to the Indie Music Podcast, the podcast for independent musicians and other audio professionals. We're your hosts. I'm Matt Denton, also known as Mojo of Ragged Birds Music. I'm a Bay Area mix engineer and recording artist. And Douglas Reynolds of Resonance Mastering, a mastering engineer in Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome to Indie Music Podcast, episode 203. In today's episode, we talk about Doug's new puppy, podcast setup versus meeting setup, managing, receiving, sharing, archiving, and backing up audio production files.
Hey, Doug.
Hey, there we are.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
All right. Oh, man. Hey, sorry I'm late. I was actually just on the phone with a client doing some mix notes.
Oh, cool. No worries. It's a couple minutes.
How are you? Am I a little loud?
Not to me,
Okay.
but I have complete control over that.
Master of audio. How are you? Happy Friday.
Yeah.
We
I'm
are
glad it's
recording on
Friday.
a Friday. It's a little different for us.
Yeah. It was a busy week.
That's all right. It was a busy week. It was. Man, today was nuts.
I claimed the reschedule to the new puppy addition to the family.
Oh, yes. Gorgeous puppy. Looks very well behaved, but what do I know?
She really is. I could go on like multiple episodes here if you want. I mean, she's awesome.
I think that's a different podcast, the dog podcast.
Yeah.
The dog cast.
I like it.
Well, that's cool. Oh, yeah, because you had a dog that passed last year, right?
Yeah, we lost 2 dogs this last year,
Oh my goodness.
and one just on the December 30th.
Right. Oh wow. Actually, yeah. I was gonna say I wasn't sure if I knew about that or if I thought that was the same one, but
Yeah, and we lost our other one in I believe March of last year.
yeah. Oh man, that's tough.
Yay, 2020.
Yeah, 2020. What a year. What a year. Good riddance. Although, yeah, I mean, we were saying there was a lot of good things to happen.
Oh, definitely.
Still, that's one for the history books.
Yeah. Let's see.
I had something I totally had something different I was going to talk about. It went right out of my head because I just got off the phone. Friday, long weekend coming. I don't know. Do you get Monday off? I get Monday off.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, I've got a bunch of mastering to get done and probably try to deliver on Monday. I'm kind of behind right now with the new puppy coming in. Priorities this week have been with the puppy, really, and
Yeah,
which
I
is
can see that.
which is fine. It's just the way I wanted it. So, but I'm behind as a result. So I'm gonna have to put some extra time in over the weekend here.
Makes sense. Yeah, I'll be wrapping up some stuff this weekend. Moving on to other things. Yeah, it's funny. I have a different Zoom setup for podcasting than I do for my, throughout the day kind of meetings. And so sometimes I forget which audio inputs and outputs I'm supposed to be using for a podcast because it's just a little different.
Oh, yeah. I don't have to change stuff up. So I've got, I run a mic preamp, and that doesn't change. And I've got it actually patched in through my patch bay into my interface, DAAD. And then I just have that on. I don't record on 1 and 2 at all. So that just stays there. If I had to move it, then I could just repatch it to a different channel.
Yeah.
I've got 8 recording channels available.
Well,
like 7 of them never get used, so.
Yeah. Well, for me now during the day, I don't use my Lewitt. I get decent quality out of my webcam microphone. So I use that. And then I leave my studio speakers on, so that I can be hands-free and stand up and walk around if I'm not on camera.
Right.
Practice guitar or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So I use the speakers for Zooms, but not for this because I don't want any echo. So I had to switch to headphones.
Yeah. I usually just don't use my rig at all. And, for like Zoom meetings and stuff, other than this one, I just use my AirPods and
Oh, okay.
for meetings and stuff, they work good. And then I got 30 feet. I can walk around with those. Then I don't have to worry about feedback from the speakers coming back in the microphone too. So
Cool.
But
yeah, it's nice to be kind of getting back in the groove, getting back to regular episodes.
Yeah.
And I know last week's interview was already pretty popular. I mean, they even did some paid promotion on it. I saw some ads
Yeah, well,
on Instagram.
Yep, so did we.
Yeah, so did we. And next week we're going to do another interview. But this week we are down to our regular old chit chat.
Yeah,
which is fun.
And I have that as looking at working with audio production files and managing, receiving, and sharing, and archiving and backing up.
Yeah, which is an interesting topic. And I'm kind of surprised we didn't talk about that already. I mean, I think we talked a little bit about it when we were talking about, what do you send to your mastering engineer, mixing engineer, but just in general, I mean, so many people are home collaborating right now, remotely, which was novel a few years ago when I was doing it, but now it's kind of become a little bit standard practice just because everybody's not going to studios because of, the pandemic and stuff. So yeah, it's a good talk to have. What do you use for file sharing and what do you use for backup?
Immediately you realize as soon as you start an audio project that there can be, especially like a mixing project, and you would be surprised in a mastering project, the number of files that actually get generated. But the first thing that happens is if you didn't record all of the tracks yourself, you're going to receive a number of stems, whatever that may be. And that can be a lot of files.
Oh yeah.
Immediately. So the first thing you do is begin managing files.
Right. And God help you if they're not named correctly.
Yeah. So you've got that file management going in. If the tracks weren't named right, trying to figure out what track is which, and hopefully they, at a minimum, had a track number in them to just help organize stuff, or hopefully also describe what's being tracked.
Yeah, I'll say that mine rarely have a track number associated with them.
Oh.
When I bounce out, I do that, but coming in, they're at least named, but I don't always know what they refer to. So,
okay. And I will often, if they're not, if they are, I'll rename them with numbers.
Yep.
And if they already have numbers, I just verify that that's the order I want them in. But that makes it easy because when I drag them all into my session, they all get arranged in the order automatically for me because of numerical order in the file order. So they just
that's cool.
Drop in order. So if I want all the drums, if I've got 10 drum tracks, I'll just start with them 1 through 10. And then I like to do bass next and, stuff like that. So anyway, so bass will start off at 11 in that case. And I'll just drop them in that way. And then everything's in order. And then I can start my groupings and stuff from that. But that's a different topic.
Yeah, that is a different topic. I mean, I have a template, so I drop them all in, and then I just kind of do as I drop them in, I label them in the Finder and as green so that I know I copied it. And then at the final end, I do a checksum. I count up all the files that came to me, and I count up all the tracks that I have, and they should match.
Yeah, and then my DAW creates an audio folder. And then all the tracks that I drop in actually end up there.
Yeah, same here.
I never remove the files that were sent to me from my downloads folder because that's it's just an area that's eventually going to get mass deleted at some point. And because I don't need those files anymore because I've got a duplicate of them after I drop them in the DAW.
Right.
And so that's the beginning of my file organization. And so the original audio files are automatically into the project as soon as I drop them in.
Yeah, so that's similar to what I do. So I get them in, and once I've done the checksum and I verified that I've copied them all into the project, and then I save the project, then they all get copied into the project folder.
Yep.
And then I delete the originals to save the space.
Yeah, I hold on to the originals for a while. Like I don't have like a set time frame. It's just whenever the next time I empty my trash bin,
Yeah, I don't mean I delete
downloads
immediately, just in case something gets corrupted and transfer, or I need to refer to something or something. But
then we've got, like for you've got your bounces. You might have like different mix folders for, it might be a demo mix or
right.
things like that. I would assume, end up with a few folders inside your project directory that are, different versions that you might have for review copies and things like that, and to get feedback and come back and then have like revisions and things that,
file management becomes kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's true, which is why naming convention, and my naming conventions have changed over the years as I've gone from working for myself to working for others and with others. Just to keep stuff straight, and I've gone from, and I think everybody kind of develops their own, but there probably are best practices, but I've gone from saying, mix version 1, mix version 2, but then you forget which one you send or which one was on what day. Okay, if I need to go back to the project, which project save corresponds with this version of the, demo file. And so I've started naming them by date. This is the group name, the song name, and the date is the day that I saved that project file and bounced that corresponding demo.
I don't put the date on mine because it's already on the file for the last modified date. So I just use the metadata that's already in the file to look at that. But I do use like a decimal versioning system. I'll have like 1.0 and 1.1 and stuff like that, with the highest level version number being the latest file, the latest version. And do that. But then once that's usually going through like some demos and reviews and revisions. And when I get to the final one, then I no longer use the demo folder anymore, and I move that out into the into the finals folder, which for mine is called masters. So my demos is called demo masters, and the finals is just called masters.
Right.
But in there, then I have another whole series of folders as well for different loudness versions and things like that.
Sure.
Just depending on what we're doing. I deal with cover art, and I keep my project documentation with the project in the main project directory with all of the audio files as well.
Right.
So everything about a project is all together within the same audio project that I create. But that also starts creating from my DAW session.
Yeah.
And I'll usually open up and I'll just create, I know what folders I need, and I should just write like a script like an Apple script that just creates all the directories for me every time, but I don't. So anyways, I spend 5 minutes.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I do feel like everybody finds their own workflow and whatever works for them eventually. And it definitely, as you just mentioned, when you take a moment or take what you should do, obviously, is schedule time once a week. And I know you do this, and I know I do this, to work on your business, not for your business. And during that time, sit back and go, okay, what can I optimize? What can I streamline? What's working but could work better, or what's not working and needs to be retooled. And that's a good time to write an Apple script.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of, I know that was like
file management wasn't really what we intended to talk about, but that's a really good point that even having done this for so long, I don't really stop to think about just how many files and folders and the management of all of those things. But all that stuff needs to A, be organized, B, be stored, and C, needs to be backed up.
Yeah. And to be honest with you and to our listeners, if you haven't really gotten into that yet and you're just starting out, you're just creating your first or second project sessions and stuff like that, the best way to learn to do this is to figure out from the mistakes that you make and how, because the way that I do things may not be the way that it works for you and your workflow.
Right.
So you just got to kind of figure that out. There'll be some little pain points where you got to, I got to move my session files over into this folder because now I've got a second project from the same client and I didn't think about that when I created the first folder, but I want it to be underneath the client.
Yeah. Yeah. That takes a while. And for people that aren't, they're not like us and doing audio work for others, they're just working for themselves. What did I start with? I have a folder of demos. I bet everybody has a demos folder, a folder of, either final songs or I think I had and I still have all these, but a demo folder, a singles folder, an albums folder. And then inside the albums folder, there's, mixes and masters. And I mean, you find your own hierarchy, you find your own work, but however but it does pay to kind of do this consistently. However it works for you, do it consistently and try to get it right for you early on so that you don't start this wasting time, because that kind of stuff kills creativity in nothing flat. If you have to look for files or, hey, where did I, and the one thing that took me way too long to figure out is, you are never going to remember what that guitar riff, that you recorded last week, what the name of that was, if you don't name it appropriately. You're like, riff idea number 3.
Yeah.
If you have to go through a year's worth of riff idea number 27, nothing's going to turn you off faster from trying to write a song. So, be your future self's best friend and name things appropriately and organize them well, early on.
An example of that is I was driving down one of the main roads here in my town. It's called Veterans Parkway. And it came up with this melody in my head. And I sang that into my phone's voice recorder. Because 5 minutes from that point, it was going to be gone. And
absolutely.
So I named it South Veterans. Because for me, it would be going, what was that melody I was singing on South Veterans that day, And so anyway, to make some sort of relationship idea to the moment or whatever the inspiration was, or the location or something that will remind me. And I can look through those files and I see South Veterans. I know exactly.
Yeah, that's
what I'm looking for.
No, mine are all voice recording 1, voice recording 2. And I'm like, what is this? And then I'm like, oh, that's terrible. Why did I think that was worth recording? Oh my God.
But then, so, you've received your files and you've set up your management system for those. And then that's also going to include the files that you create through your audio production process.
Right.
And then you have to share them. Originally, Google Drive or Dropbox or something like that was my go-to solution. What I realized about that for me was that it ends up being multiple or duplicates of the same file stored in different locations. That being because I don't like to have the Google Drive folder locally on my computer, because then I'm also, not only am I using up Google Drive space, but I'm also using the space up on my local hard drive as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then in the Drive application, going through all the sharing, and you have to be concerned with permissions and who has access and all that stuff. And I found that to just be a lot of extra stuff to be concerned with. But in the context of what we're talking about today, having the duplicate file is problematic, because why do I want to have that file other than backup purposes? Okay.
Right.
In those 2 locations, when I'm also going to have a backup of it. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Right.
Just for the purposes of sharing.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And it bothers me too, because then you have to go check and say, oh, wait, which version did I upload?
Yeah.
Because they're completely separated.
Yeah. So now you've got double the file management, to keep all that stuff. And that bugged me. I'm a big fan now of WeTransfer. I've got a pro account in WeTransfer because it's worth it. And that gives me a branded page. I can send my client. They don't have to have a WeTransfer account. They can just go to my WeTransfer page and upload files directly from that.
Yeah, WeTransfer is great because even with a free account, you can transfer big files quickly, and it doesn't stick them in a holding bin. It just sends them an email that they click on a link and download it. I do like the elegance of that.
And with the pro account, I get 4 weeks. Well, I could probably longer. I can set those, and I set them up to automatically delete in 4 weeks. I think with the free account, 2 weeks might be the maximum. I can't remember for sure.
It's short because like if they don't download it, then it gets deleted. They have, I think it's 7 days, I want to say.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I could be wrong for the free account.
But my client's going to go back and download their files as many times as they want.
Yeah.
For 4 weeks. And after that, those are usually, those are demos or finals. And then they peel off from there. So the files are then in possession of the client where they should be. I'm really only concerned with archiving my session and one copy of the final. The demos aren't important to me in the end and stuff like that. It's the session. So if I needed to go back in at a later date, I could. How important is that? Have you ever done it? I actually haven't.
Well, specifically what?
Like your Logic session.
I have, but not for a client.
Like 6 months from now, are you ever going to break back into a client session to redo something?
It hasn't happened yet, but I can't say that that's possible. I remember we had this conversation with Mixer Man once during a Twitter chat, one of my DIY music chats.
Oh, yeah.
And he said,
fun guy,
that he's an interesting guy. Very opinionated, but anyway. He said once that's final and it goes out and he's delivered what he's been asked to deliver, delivers the final client mixes, he deletes the original session and just doesn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
And people were like, "What do you mean you don't have it anymore?" It's like, it's done. It's been delivered. I don't need to keep that stuff around.
Yeah.
And people were kind of aghast, but I can kind of see that.
Yeah.
Why would you need to go recreate?
I tend to agree with him. I didn't really side with or against his argument on that because I think you just do what you do.
Right.
Whatever makes sense for you. I kind of come from a mindset of keep things longer than you think you need them.
Yes.
And back them up. And then when drive space becomes a concern, then I can start clearing stuff out. It's not that hard,
Yeah.
I'd rather have more than I need than not enough of what I need,
Right.
To his point, it's true. I honestly have an archive of stuff that I've never had to get back into for years.
Well, to me, the problem with, and this is something that I guess he may have mentioned, but the problem with digital sessions is, 5 years from now, all my plugins will have been revved. The program will have been revved. I won't be able to load probably half of the stuff that I'm running right now in the original session. It's going to come up and it's not going to sound the same.
Yeah.
Like it's almost impossible for it to sound the same, even if it loads correctly.
Right.
And I'll probably pull it up and go, wow, is that even what it sounded like back then? Or is it that it's actually different?
Yeah.
And so the other way to do
is that how much I've grown in the last 5 years?
Right. And how can you tell? And yeah, absolutely. That's true. What was the saying? If you're not embarrassed by who you were a year ago, then you're not growing fast enough. But, but yeah, even if then at some point in the last few years, I started doing a thing where, okay, so here's a final project. I'm going to bounce wet stems and dry stems of my project and then get rid of all of the little project pieces, the file pieces, because I know that they'll never load correctly. I just want the actual stems that I can theoretically recreate a mix from if I had to make another mix. But if you deliver a vocal up mix, a vocal down mix, a television mix, and instrumental, and the clients like it and they've gone off and gone on to the next thing, they're not going to come back and ask for, hey, can you do well, maybe they will. I don't know. Can you generate a TV mix for our first single from 10 years ago? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that you just decide if you're going to do that or not. And then that's a long-term project.
Right.
And if not, then you're not going to do it. So
yeah, I mean, because storage costs money,
yeah,
time costs money, and if you've gone from a project that took X that you got paid for, that took X number of days, and you turn it into a decade-long project where you keep stuff around indefinitely in case somebody comes back and asks, I don't know, that's a whole different ballgame.
yeah.
This is occurring to me as I'm saying it.
The thing is for me, and the drive storage space isn't as much of a concern is because I offload the stuff and archive it onto, I got a 4 terabyte external drive that I archive to. So I only keep the most recent projects on my local hard drive. And when I'm done with them, I offload them so that they're not needed anymore.
I do keep 2 backups. I keep a cloud backup and a local backup.
Yeah.
Because being in the IT world, as you know, you always want to have at least 2 backups, and they should be in different places.
Yeah. And I use a service called Backblaze.
Yeah, I was going to mention Backblaze.
And we're not sponsored or anything. I just like them. We're not sponsored by WeTransfer either.
Inexpensive. Yeah, no.
So this is stuff that I actually use and like and would definitely recommend. And I back up not only my computer, but I back up my external drive. So my archive and what's on my machine are both back up to the cloud.
Yeah, and it's inexpensive. It's like $6 a month to start for Backblaze.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't getting Code 42 or whatever Crash Plan, I think they're the same thing. If I wasn't getting that through work, I would definitely pay for Backblaze to back up to the cloud.
I think it's probably I've been using Backblaze for 7 or 8 years now.
Oh, wow. Nice.
I did try out Crash Plan. I don't know what my decision was at that point. It might've been price for Backblaze or just the service.
Yeah. Again, I don't love Crash Plan. I actually find it annoying.
Okay.
But work pays for it. So
and maybe that was because I remember trying it out at the time. They had trial periods for these things, and I was checking them out and just the experience. And I don't know about you, but I actually try to see what the restore process is like and things like that.
Oh,
and like in the worst case scenarios, I think, this is a selling point for me on Backblaze is that right now I could, for $165 in that neighborhood, they would just ship me a hard drive with all my stuff on it.
Oh,
and
to me, that would be worth it.
And then I have the choice. I can keep the hard drive or I can offload all that stuff and restore everything, wipe the hard drive, send it back to them, and they give me a full refund.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So the whole restore thing, it's just, 165 is a little bit more than what you'd pay. So it might be $40, $50 more than what you'd go down to Best Buy or something and get the same drive for. But it has all your data on it, and it's conveniently there. So you could feasibly just put it in your computer and start running.
So I feel like this could be a 2-parter, but we had an interesting discussion. Knowing that this was going to be the topic for tonight, I brought this up in the DIY music chat today and kind of asked people, what are they using? And I got more or less the responses I expected, which is most people use Google Drive or Dropbox. I originally started using Dropbox, and some people stopped for the same reason I did, which is it stopped being a simple, file transfer and started being kind of a middleware and got a little feature bloated and weird. But somebody uses it for backup, and I didn't ever think of it as that. They do desktop sync with Dropbox, and so they pay the monthly fee to do desktop sync, and that is both their file transfer and backup solution, which is not something that would have occurred to me. But that's another way to go. The cool thing about Drive, and I know we use that for our podcast project files, is that, okay, if you have a file in Drive that's an audio file, you don't actually have to download it. You can actually play it right there in your browser and preview it.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to have then, because if I have it and I put it on Drive and then you download it, now there's 3 copies of it.
Yeah.
Right. And those things, that's like 3 times the file management. But if I put it on Drive and then you preview it and then I delete it later, now there's only 1 copy.
Right.
So that's kind of a cool thing.
That player works okay. It doesn't work that great for like WAV files though, which is it does work, but it's weird. And so sometimes, and I think most of the time it's weird from your mobile device. I think it works
I haven't
better
tried that.
From your computer. Whereas Dropbox has a really nice player and it works well in all the formats that I've tried with it. So I would give that definitely to Dropbox, that if you're sending demos that are to be just read only and just played, that check that out, because it's actually pretty nice. And if you're into video and stuff like that too, the video tools for sharing out of Dropbox, like to post into social media and stuff, actually work really well.
Now, let me ask you. So do you mean that Dropbox app has a player built in?
No.
Or do you mean that
just hitting the link in your mobile device will open up a player?
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because I actually use Google Drive almost exclusively, or unless I use WeTransfer. But what I do for myself when I have a client mix that I want to hear how it sounds, I put it in Dropbox, and then I go for a walk, and then I play it on my phone from Dropbox.
Yeah.
And that's how I proof stuff.
Yeah, I do the same kind of thing, except I'll upload it to like Google Drive, and then I'll download it for a local offline version, because so I don't burn through my data while I'm out listening to it, and just listen to it locally that way. I will say also the WeTransfer file player works great. So right there from a mobile device, when you go to download, it'll open it up in a player and you can download it from there.
Yeah.
And I really like that a lot too. So you don't necessarily have to download the files, and you can just listen to them. So you can stream those that way too.
Sometimes I just email MP3s to people, because it's only like 8 megabytes for a song.
Oh yeah.
And that way I don't have to worry about them getting a link and then having to go to the web and logging in somewhere or doing something. It's like, here's the file, just listen to it.
Yeah. See, all my demos, well, for master demos, those are usually delivered as WAV files, because we're looking at the best possible quality uncompressed format to listen to for those. And so waves are bigger because they're uncompressed. And and then, like I said,
like 10 times bigger.
Yeah. And then the drive player, I think, and it might be because of the file size, it takes forever to load. And I've had it like where I just can't get it to play. I wait like 10 minutes for it to load up and it still won't play for me. Where I can upload that to WeTransfer or Dropbox, and as soon as that upload's completed, the player's active and you can use it, So
yeah,
I've just had better experience with it than I had Google Drive.
Yeah. Well, of course we have different needs, and this is something that we didn't really get to touch too much on in the chat today, because I was kind of like trying to, get the finger on the pulse of what people are doing, but we didn't really touch on, if you're doing this, if you're transferring files for, hey, I'm collaborating with you, I want to send you the highest quality file that I have because you're going to use it in a project, versus, hey, I have a demo I want you to hear, or something that I've worked on that I just want you to preview.
Right.
To me, those are two completely different needs.
Yeah.
With maybe two different solutions.
Yeah. I mean, for that, I would be bouncing out to an MP3 just for like, here's an idea. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly.
Versus here's a deliverable. I want them to have the best listening experience they can have. So I'm going to give them the fully uncompressed file.
Yeah.
That doesn't have any of the, it's lossy compression. You're basically going to lose quality in an MP3 immediately.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Even though I knowing that I'm going to get revisions, I tend to share, MP3s, but I do like the 320K version. So they're pretty high quality.
Oh yeah. I think I do mine in 5.
Because if I know I'm going to go through a round of mix revisions, I don't want to be sending, 75 gigabyte. I mean, 70, yeah, whatever. 75, is it 75 gigabyte? 75 megabyte, 75 megabyte files all over. And then I'm filling up my hard drive, I'm filling up Google Drive, I'm filling up their hard drive with all these, 75 megabyte files of waves. That doesn't seem, for the amount of mix revisions.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem efficient, but.
Yeah, because I always do mine. I think it's like, what, 512, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think 320 sounds pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know why. I figured 320 sounds good. 512 better. I have one even higher available to me, but I never use it. I don't know that there would be any discernible difference.
Yeah, if you go higher, you might as well be sending a wave.
Yeah. Well,
or FLAC. I don't use FLAC, but that's another one.
Maybe if someone actually ever sent me pre-masters at some really high sample rate, but I usually don't get anything higher than 48 is really standard for what I receive. I can certainly receive much higher than that. I can process that stuff without any problem. But as you know, on the mixing side, to do that, you got to give up half your channel count to allow for the higher sample rates. Right. And that's hard for the studios to do. That's kind of a burden, and it increases work because you have to have multiple. Well, you can't track as much. You can track half the count. You can't mix and export to the same. If you're bouncing or printing, you're limited on the number of, because you're basically recording your print then. And so you're limited on the number of stems that you can generate at one time. And there's all kinds of things. If you have a 16 channel at 48, you only have 8 at 96, which means if you've got 16 tracks, you're going to have to bounce twice. So now that's, 2 times the effort to do what you need to do. And then bounce again to bring those two together. So you've bounced 3 times to get what you would in one bounce at 48K.
Yeah.
But in the digital domain, it's not.
Yeah. As bad. In the digital domain, I mean, you're just making your computer work harder.
Yeah. There's also latency involved.
Yes. Latency is a thing. But I still feel like 48 covers all your bases.
Yeah. It's considered to be high definition. Anything higher than 44.1 is high definition.
I read an article recently that said that it was originally that when they were making the standards for bit rate and for sample rate, and the 44.1, it was meant to be 48 originally, and 44.1 was a compromise to fit the same amount of songs on a CD as was on an LP.
Yeah.
And if they had made it 48, they wouldn't have been able to do it with the technology of the CD at the time. They probably could now, but at the time they wanted to be able to fit, the same amount of songs on a CD as they could on a LP record. And so they fudged the sample rate and made 44.1 the standard.
Right. Which leads us back to the files, because now you've got a bunch of files that are much larger in size.
Right.
Because you're storing more samples per second, which is more data that each file contains.
Yeah, I did the John Cougar thing, and I held on to 16 as long as I could. But eventually I went to 24-bit.
Yeah. So the only time, I'm usually in 44 now these days is this podcast, I think. I'll have to check if I'm in 48 or not.
Well, if it's not, I upsample it.
Oh, okay.
My project template's 48.
And I might be in 44 because the other thing that I do is render to CDs. And I got to be in 44.1. It's 16-bit for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like I said, I held on to that for as long as I could. But now if I just downsample, I dither. So
yeah. Yep, same. Dithering.
Well, that's a whole nother. As soon as it left my mouth, I'm like, oh, okay, there's a whole nother podcast topic right there.
What time is it?
We're over time. I think we touched on a lot of stuff, but I don't know that we went too far in depth.
No.
I after the 2 discussions about this that I've had now today, I'm definitely going to kind of rethink my workflow in terms of file sharing and storage, and I may just gravitate towards the WeTransfer more.
Yeah, check it out, and we could certainly do that with the podcast for a few times if you want, just to get a feel for it. But it's really working good for me. Yeah,
it's for me, because it's push versus pull. It's how many clicks do you have? I just want to come up with something that's a little more streamlined, a little less click heavy
Yeah.
for me and whoever I'm sending stuff to, just to kind of remove friction,
Yeah.
and remove steps and resistance. So
one other
looking at
aspect of WeTransfer is on the security side. So
Yep.
it's simple. You create a password at the time that you're creating the file transfer, and then you just let who you're delivering it to know what the password is, and it's secured. So the only way you can access it is with the password then. And you can do that with both. You can email it and email it'll send the transfer link to them in email, or you can just create a link and then email them yourself through your regular email account with the link in there, and that'll take them to. And those both ways can be password secured.
Yeah, I like that.
All right. Well, there's everything that you.
there's a smorgasbord for you. A little bit of file transfer, a little bit of storage, a little bit of backup, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and I think we did pretty darn good on staying on topic tonight. I think so too. Kind of we've grown, we've matured.
I do miss the banter a little bit. We got to bring a little bit.
Well, we attempted to banter a little bit early there, but I don't know about you, but I had no idea how to get into file sharing from where we were.
I know we gotta find our groove. We'll find our groove.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy.
Absolutely. Care. Have a great week, and stay well.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Indie Music Podcast. Please like and subscribe, share with your friends, or just leave us a review on iTunes if you like what you've heard. Find our social links and episode guide at indiemusiccast.com. Until next time, keep creating.